Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Sweeter After Difficulty podcast. I am Randy Highsmith, and I wanted to start this episode, first of all, by just expressing some gratitude to all of you who checked out the first episode that we launched last Friday. If you haven't had a chance, go check it out on the Rumble platform. You can just search for the Sweeter After Difficulty podcast. Give it a subscribe, give it a like, give it a share it out to people. We're just getting started, but the numbers and the feedback have been so amazing. So thank you so much for being part of the community right from the ground floor. So we have an exciting show for you today. We're going to be talking about such an important subject, the something that's super near and dear to all of our hearts. So today, with us, as always, I have the Quote Master General Jordan Lopez. How you doing, Jordan? And our buddy Chris Anderson from Aries Roseville. And so these guys are going to hang out with us today and have a conversation about testing ourselves. Who better to get it started than the Quote Master General himself?
All right. Okay, so this quote's from Jack Donovan. He's an author. He's known for his book, The Way of Men and Becoming a Barbarian. So the quote is this: all of our lives are stories and collections of highs and lows, of victories and defeats, of struggles and overcoming. Without conflict, no life story is worth telling. Without conflict and struggle, the answer to the question of what happened is nothing.
Let that sink in for a second. Yeah, this is a heavy one, but I think that quote captures perfectly the point and the intention of this conversation today. All of us are really big on testing ourselves and on testing a lot of different things. But initially, when you listen to that quote and you hear it all the way through to the end, I think the word that hit me the hardest was nothing, right? Without it, what happens? Nothing. So, what do you think it is that keeps people from testing themselves?
I think people do, but it stops in high school. Like,
Interesting.
how many people do you know who are like, oh, I was a stud X in high school, baseball player, football player, wrestler, but they're in their 40s now, and they live vicariously through this incredible time in their life when they were 18 and could eat whatever they wanted to, and they could get no sleep, and they could do all this stuff, and they're still a monster in the gym, or they're still a monster on the field. And you look at them now, and you're like, but dude, that was 20 years ago. Like, what have you done
Yeah.
recently? Who cares about high school? Like, I think people get in this old perspective of like the glory days, and they live vicariously through that time, and they just stop. And at least myself, I've never been interested in that. I've never wanted to be that person. High school sucked. I want to do, I want to do cool stuff now. I don't want to do cool stuff when I was 17. Like, I don't know. I think about that a lot.
Yeah, there's a musician I'm a big fan of, this rapper by the name of Prof, and he has a line that says like the youngest you'll ever be is today.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like that notion of, you're there's no benefit to looking into the past. Like the youngest you're going to be is today, so what are you going to do with that?
Mhm.
And I think that speaks directly to the notion of testing yourself.
So let's unpack that a little bit. So you say that most people stop testing themselves at the high school level. What are the qualifications in your mind of what equals me testing myself or me just trusting or enduring what other people are putting me through, that I'm going to get results that they're kind of setting me up for if I adhere to that? Does that make sense?
I think it's easy to think about the physical stuff, right? Like physical tests, be it the because okay, think about this. Okay, so CrossFit is so popular because they have the workout of the day, right? You can show up with nothing prepared, and some dude somewhere will create some random workout, and everybody does it together, and you do it for time, and you're testing yourself for that. Like, and I think that's a big reason why CrossFit's so popular is that you're kind of show up and you achieve something because somebody created some sort of workout, right? So a lot of people do CrossFit. A lot of people like to preach CrossFit, and I've never really done it. I'm not really been interested in it, but I get the idea of it because you can go and kind of achieve something and be tested to a certain time that you can know that people can do it in. But it's easy to make those comparisons, but life is not just physical stuff, right? You have testings with work, or you have testings with family, or testings with hardships in life, and like I think the easy thing is to always think about the physical, but not think about the emotional tests or the spiritual tests or stuff like that in life. And I think because
So
the
let me
physical ones
put,
are easy to see and easy to kind of quantify, versus the other ones are not.
I mean,
so let
especially
me
for
push.
us, like
I want
we
to
like
push
the
back a little
fitness.
bit though. Hold on, before you go too far, Chris. I want to
Yeah,
push
yeah.
back a little, right? Um, because I want to really draw a line where we make the distinction between testing that happens as the result of going through a human experience, right? Which is outside circumstances or even internal circumstances that we don't have a lot of control over as we get older. And then there's the tests that we put on ourselves,
Yeah.
right? Where we intentionally choose, let me find out where my limit is in this thing. So I'm not necessarily saying that has to be physical, because I mean, God knows I've endured some personal tests that were completely upstairs, right? Uh, for whatever. But in terms of like, you join a high school sport, right? Your coach is going to tell you, you have to do this, and then you go do it, right? And then you become stronger and you get better. Hopefully, you become motivated and you learn to want to test yourself. But initially, that's always someone else pushing or motivating us, right? So let's draw it down and separate that and say, okay, we can talk later maybe about testing that comes from outside circumstances. Let's focus today on what is why is it important, or is it important that we place those tests on ourselves, and if it is important, or if it isn't, why?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got kind of a different thought on that than Jordan, or maybe even than Jack Donovan in the quote, in the sense where he said at the very end, it's like if we're not testing, then there's nothing. And I would disagree slightly with that, in the sense that like we will always be presented with tests of some kind. And sometimes we get to control the parameters of those tests and we can test ourselves. Other times they're going to be completely beyond our control. And if you make testing a regular part of how you live your life, the fear that's associated with failing the test or being unprepared for the test, that fear diminishes over time. And I think, Randy, like what you're talking about is like, why do people back away from strident, hard tests so frequently? And I think a big part of it is that the risk associated with failing the test is seen as severe. But in reality, the risk of failing a test is minimal. It's just a part of the process. No one ever aces every test. And yet we have this like pull inside of ourselves. Like, oh man, I have to get it perfect. I have to get it right. And whether it's an emotional test or a physical test or a mental test or whatever, as long as you make testing a part of how you live your life, then whether or not it's a test that you get to control or whether it's one that's put upon you is somewhat irrelevant, because the test itself isn't as scary as it maybe once was.
All right, I got one for you. Okay, so I listened to the Huberman podcast just randomly, and he covered a thing where he's talking about the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, and it's a part of your brain that grows when you do hard things, and it only grows when you do things you don't want to do that are hard, right? And it stops growing if you start doing easy things that you know you can achieve. And so it's a very kind of like interesting dynamic that's kind of come out, that like guys like David Goggins or guys like Cameron Haynes or these people who do these crazy things. It's like, yes, the moment you start enjoying the hard thing or the test, like the moment your brain stops developing that part of it. And it's such an interesting thing. Like, so when I came to California a couple of weeks ago on Saturday, Jimmy had me go with all these black belts who are guys who've been black belts for way longer than me. And I knew it was coming, and I was looking forward to it, but then also not looking forward to it, because it's just like, it's just the gauntlet, and it's just going to be a smash fest for however long it goes. And it was terrible, and it was amazing, and I loved every second of it, and I also didn't enjoy it at all. So it's one of these things where it's like, after the fact, it was amazing. It was amazing to
Yeah.
have done it and to have invited it and to have welcomed it. And it's also like in the back of my mind, I'm like, all right, just time to bite down the mouthpiece and just do it. And it's funny kind of thinking about that part of your brain, like, and then having kids and trying to teach them, like, how do you teach your kids to do terrible, hard things and to learn to and to not enjoy it too much because the development.
Yeah. Well, and it would come as no surprise to you that that same level of anxiety and trepidation was coursing through every vein in my body going,
Yeah.
oh, man, I still have to roll with Jordan. I gotta roll with all these guys. Jimmy's out here calling shots like, hey, everybody who's the worst, the scariest guy in the gym, go line up for Lopez. Yeah, super fascinating. Okay, so we've drawn that line, and under those circumstances, under that definition, does that change your thoughts on when people stop testing themselves, or if most people are actually testing themselves up to a certain point?
I don't think it does. I think you're the only one that can define what is a test for you. Like, I think testing yourself has to be a deeply personal experience for it to be meaningful. And I like the way that like Huberman talked about it from the neurological perspective, like the scientific perspective, that there is a chemical process associated with pushing your boundaries. And it's easy to go and look at guys like Goggins and Cameron Haynes and say, my gosh, what great idols for pushing yourself.
Hmm.
But because testing yourself is something that's deeply personal, those may not be everybody's best idol and best example to go chase, right? And so I think, Randy, to answer your question, like only you will know that. Like you have to build in enough self-awareness to say like, am I taking the easy way today? And it's fine to do that every now and again. Don't get me wrong, like we all do. And sometimes it's restorative, but that's really something that like it's got to be one-to-one, like just you versus you.
Okay.
I do like. I remember myself. So in kind of doing like a jujitsu kind of perspective, in doing jujitsu, like I have always wanted to not duck people. Like, and I can remember several. There's less than 4 or 5 times in 9 years now I've ducked somebody, and those 4 or 5 times haunt me that I didn't just do. Like, and I know exactly who it was, and I know exactly when it was, and like, and even coming to Georgia, like I made a conscious decision to never duck anybody here, and I've never ducked anybody yet. And it's like the ones that happened where I was a lower belt, like a white belt, blue belt, maybe a young purple belt, and knowing exactly who I ducked, and not wanting to take the beating because the guy was more athletic and better or stronger than me, and I was either lower belt than me, and knowing that he will give me a really hard time, and like it bothers me. It partially kind of bothers me because I know I took the easy route, and I don't like admitting to myself that I did that. And like looking back now, it's like those things. I don't want it to be kind of come who I am, and so it's like I'm very conscious of that little weakness that I had. And even I remember that night, like driving home, being like, I can't believe I did. I can't believe I ducked that guy.
Yeah, I always told my boys that the right thing is usually not the easy thing, right? But okay, so I guess what I want to do is I want to establish sort of it. I know maybe it seems like I'm kicking the dead horse here, but I have an intention here, because I think that what we do, and I thought that the high school age thing was, and especially high school sports was such a great place to go, because what I found and I wasn't much of an athlete in high school. I got into music early. But I wrestled a little bit. And what I found was I didn't show up to practice or to matches or tournaments or whatever uh, with the mindset of I'm going to come test myself and see how good I can do today. It was way more like, I don't want the coach to yell at me, and so I'm going to do whatever I can. I definitely didn't have a champion mindset, or even understood what it meant to be a champion, back then. And I think that a lot of kids probably are in that same boat where it's like a teacher or your parent or, a set of built-in, whether real or imagined expectations that are cast upon us, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of us, rather than learning how to truly test ourselves for the sake of figuring out where we're at so that we can decide what to do next, I feel like most of us are simply trying to achieve that set of expectations that we carry around. Again, real or imagined, but that we carry around, right? So you know, I didn't start going to jujitsu to test myself. I started going because I was in such horrible, miserable shape. I thought this has to be the bottom of the barrel, right? There, like everything above this has to be better than every day right now, living in this fat, crippled, like unhealthy, not feeling good body. It can't be that. Um, but I don't know that and I think probably it's fair to say that I didn't go like, I'm going to prove to myself that I can do this, right? I went in like, I have to do something. But then I fell in love, right? And once that happened, then I had like not just a desire to feel better, but then I was like, okay, I want to see, if it takes 10 years, how much faster than 10 years can I do it?
Right.
How fast can I learn this? How can I relate that? Um, the testing came when I felt personally invested in something that I started doing out of a sense of sort of having to, um, so now having heard that example, do you understand what I'm saying? Like I want to talk about our autopilot versus our intentional choosing of testing ourselves. And is that important? And if so, yes or no, why?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's really important. I mean, part of this is like I think we do need to draw a line between the parameters of a test and what the test is aiming to achieve. And I think in the story that you just gave, the test was, do I have enough courage to look myself in the mirror and be comfortable, or at least address the fact that I'm not happy with where my fitness and my parents are, and am I going to do something about it? Right. So the test was passed the moment that you put the gi on the first time you went to jujitsu. Everything outside of that was, parameters that you thought mattered, but were really irrelevant in the sense of like, if your rock bottom was, I can't, like, I'm crippled, I can't move, my hips are broken, I'm overweight, right? I need something. Okay, great. The test is, what are you going to do about that? The ball is in your court. What are you going to do? And you walked through the door, you showed up, and you did it. So everything that happened after you walked through the door was just an added benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's weird. So for me, I feel like that wasn't me testing myself. That was the universe or like
Sure.
outside forces or whatever it was, right? Uh, and I agree with you. Passing or failing, right, is just part of the journey, right? Like if I would have
100%.
not done it, then I wouldn't have done it, and things would be different today, right? Um, so I guess my so how much of it is intention? How much does intention play a factor in whether or not it can truly be considered? And again, owning the idea that the test is your own personal, you have to have that personal honesty. I'm a big believer in that, right? Personal honesty. Um, because I think personal honesty comes out right into societal honesty. Um, but I feel like it would be dishonest for me to say, yeah, I passed that first test that I put on myself because I literally feel like I crawled into that place from the gutter. You know, like there's nowhere else to go. Like this is it,
Yeah.
right? You have to do something. And I have these memories of driving by jujitsu schools early at different times in my life and be like, oh, maybe I'm into, no, too much work, right? Too much work. It wasn't the right time. So I guess what I want to establish first is how much is intention tied to whether or not a test is from outside or whether it's ourselves, like us testing ourselves.
I think most tests are they have to have parameters, right? And they have to have like a start and a finish because like when you're in school, there's class time and then there's a test. The test is measuring what you know and how well you can perform under a certain set of guidelines and a structure, right? Like every day in school is not a test, right? There's a specific test day or test type. And so I think for myself at least, it's like I need for myself, I need to have like a certain structure to test my endurance or to test my mental resolve or to test my ability to overcome. And like I know for myself as a kid, I never had that. I just like I was good. I was decent at school. I played baseball from age 4 to 18, and it was like I had games and I had a batting average and stuff like that. That was a culmination of my ability to perform under with different pitchers in different environments. But like really, it never really clicked with me until I really started cycling and like having races where that race and how well you do at that race is all a matter of how well you trained yourself and you performed or you sacrifice and did all the things necessary to achieve that one event. And even the outcome of that one event, no matter how much I trained for it, I can have a mechanical issue and blow my chain off in the first 30 seconds and then the race is over, right? And I could prepare for it the best way possible, but there's things outside of your control that happen. And I think you need to have like a specific structure and guidelines to measure what a test is versus just some random life event that could just pop up.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that you bring that up. It's almost like, if we're going to be honest, Randy, like you were saying, if we're going to be honest with ourselves about intentionality when it comes to testing, because there's going to be times when the universe decides to give you a test. It's like almost, what are you going to put into your toolbox to make sure that you're prepared to address tests? And I think, Jordan, what you're talking about is like the notion of self-awareness, right? Like, did I do my preparation? Did I put the work in? Am I comfortable with measuring the accumulation of all of that preparation? That can be one, being able to define the parameters put in front of you. Randy, for you, it's I'm crippled or I'm not feeling like, my life is going the direction that I want to. And if I just get through the door, then we'll see what happens. Like that's the victory. And so it's like, okay, what else should go into that toolbox to make sure that you can prepare yourself to address tests that you intend to take or that the universe just places in front of you?
I think it's interesting. I totally agree, actually, first of all. I think it's interesting what Jordan said. And so I want to unpack a little bit the wording, right? So Jordan, you said, I need to have those tests for myself, right? Well, to me, a need is not tied to intention, right? I'm not intending to breathe right now, but my body knows I need it. So I'm breathing, right? Like that's it. But there are specific things that you do that you don't need to do. Like there's plenty of examples of that, right? Like you don't need to do this, but you choose to do them to see if you can do them. I think that what I'm trying to draw a really clear picture of is in our daily lives, we might set out to test ourselves on something. And then the universe might throw things, like you said, at us from the side.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, the universe, its input is like, there are people out there that could do violence to you. So you should go buy a gun, right? So I go and buy a gun. But my test is, are you going to buy a gun and leave it in a safe in your garage with no ammo and, like maybe run out to the garage and unlock it and hammer somebody to death with your gun? Or are you going to learn how to properly handle it? Are you going to safely, learn how to take it apart and clean it? Are you going to learn what ammo it needs? Are you going to go spend the time at the range to figure out how to shoot it? Are you going to become proficient so that when that violent thing happens, not only are you ready to face that test, you're prepared intentionally to face that test, right? So you can't prepare for every possible outcome in life, right? You can't prepare for every possible circumstance. You can only prepare for the things that you prioritize as being important, right? Or that you place on a higher level of value. Maybe it's not less value, but it's on the front burner, right? You decide that. So that's kind of where I'm at. How in our daily lives, and everybody out there listening right now, put down in the comments, do you feel like this is something you do? Are you testing yourself intentionally, regularly? And if so, what about? And what's your success been? Does this isn't about teaching you something. I really want to know, like, when it comes to the importance of testing ourselves, which I believe it's very important, but why is it important? And now with that added set of circumstances of you can't possibly be prepared for everything, so you choose the things that you're going to prioritize to be ready for, to test yourself on. And what is the motivating factor there then? And I know that's personal, right? That's personal for everybody. I get that. But do we all even know what it is? The three of us here, do we know what it is? Everybody listening, do you know what it is? If you don't, you probably should. Everybody here has a set of values, right? Everybody here believes in something. Everybody here doesn't believe in something. And a lot of those things are completely different things. So the likelihood that you're going to line up, and I think that's why you're going to hear us, like, we're going to try to make this not jam-packed with jujitsu every 5 minutes, but the reality is it's been such a life-changing thing, right, for
Right.
all of us. And we think it's kind of a small miracle that not only did we find something that transformed us inside and out so radically, but we also found community in that of other sickos who wanted to punish themselves just as much as us, just for the sake of seeing, hey, at age 25, I thought I was probably going to gain more weight and become more crippled and eventually end up in a chair and eventually end up, losing limbs. And eventually, I didn't think I was going to be a fighter in my 40s, right? That's changed. And as a result of that, as a result of the gratitude of that change, right, that prompts me to want to test myself. But is that because I'm now on autopilot of making good choices, or making the choice of trying to test myself? Or is it because I'm making that because I'm prioritizing it?
I think an interesting thing. So I had a really cool kind of conversation with one of my guys at our gym, who's a U.S. Marshal, and his kid trains with my kids. And he made a really interesting point. He's like talking to his daughter about training, and he's like, the moment you realize that this superpower exists outside of the gym in reality too, like that's a change. It's a life changing kind of thing. Like, and even my kids who've been training for years don't really think about that. Like, if they deal with some bully at school, like they don't realize how much they understand and how much they know about protecting themselves. Like, and even as an adult, like I remember getting to a certain point and being like, oh yeah, some crazy person starts a fight with me. I'm gonna probably walk away because I don't want to go to jail for hurting somebody. But if push comes to shove and I have to protect myself, I know exactly what I'm gonna do. Like,
Right.
and then even a whole little thought process in your head, like what you would do to protect yourself on the street with using the martial art that I spend 4 to 5 days a week doing. Like there was a click in my brain one day. It's like, oh yeah, this thing works outside too. Like it's not just a jujitsu thing. It's a reality on reality's terms kind of a thing. Not every situation's a gun situation. Like I grew up shooting guns. I've done lots of training. I have really good friends who are military guys and marshals and police officers, and I do lots of training with them. And you very quickly realize I just can't pull a gun out on somebody most of the time, right? Nor do I want to, and I don't ever want to be in that situation. Like, I don't look forward to it. I have no interest in doing that. That's why I'm not a cop, and that's why I'm not somebody who wants to get into it with people all the time. I'm not looking for fights all the time. The more I do jujitsu, the less I want to fight people.
Yeah.
Really. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm a black belt. And I don't want to.
That is a strange thing, right? That is a super strange thing about
Yes.
jujitsu, and probably about most martial arts, right? Is the more you learn them, the less you want to have to use them against somebody else. I mean, I've hurt my friends on accident in the gym before and felt awful, and I didn't ruin their life or, permanently damage a limb or, or kill somebody. I would never want to do that. But knowing that I have the capability of that it changes your whole mentality.
Well, you realize too, like, if with jujitsu that we all train and roll with governors on, right? If you turn those off, like, you can give people life-altering injuries very quickly. Like, a good Americana turning somebody's shoulder inside out with no governor, like, that is something that they'll look back on 10 years from now and be like, I shouldn't have messed with that guy in the street. Like, but you know it. I know it. I roll with people. I give them tons of time to tap to an Americana. Like, way more time than I would give anybody else, because I don't want to hurt. Like,
or to anything.
Exactly. Like, I would feel sick if I ever hurt somebody. Like, I physically am bothered by it. Like,
and I think that insight that you both sharing, I think that's like the critical thing that like draws us to jujitsu, and why testing yourself, because I think innately we all came to the sport with a desire to test ourselves, right? And the notion of like every single day you go into a jujitsu gym, you have to test yourself. You're going to lose, you're going to get tapped, but at the same time, if it were to ever translate into the street, like I know what to do now, and the fact that I overcame that fear that I didn't know that I had before I started this sport, like overcoming that fear singularly has been the most transformative thing. Like, less the physical attributes, less the techniques that I know, less the confidence that comes with knowing that I can handle myself, but the way that I lived every day before I walked into a jiu-jitsu gym, scared of the unknown, versus now I've got a comfort in how I would deal with the unknown. Like, that's the transformative piece. And I think I was just really, really fortunate to find the test that allowed me to get that answer, and then develop myself and my skills through that process.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of where it was leading for me. So I'm so glad that you said that, and that's the road you went down. Because I think the biggest reality or realization came to me through the understanding that every single good thing for me, or that I could learn to be a benefit for myself or for other people, was on the other side of fear, right?
Yeah.
And learning how to go, I'm gonna keep stepping forward and face this fear now as practice, so that I won't have to try to do the practice scared when the real shit hits the fan. You know what I mean? Like when it really comes down, when the rubber meets the road, I don't want to be learning how to defend myself. We also, and this is another big one, right? Especially guys do this a lot. We all have a tendency to overinflate in our minds our ability to fight based on the last time that we actually had to use it in any sort of a real way, right? So that kid's ass that you whooped in 6th grade has nothing to do with your ability to fight right now. I'm sorry to tell you, it has nothing to do with it.
Right. Or if you were the kid who was getting his ass whipped in the 6th grade, right? The same thing applies.
Same thing. Has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
And so I think the value of testing yourself and the importance of it is more in facing your fears. That fear that you talked about, Chris, of failure is just one of them, right? Fear of failure is one. sometimes fear of success is another one, you know. I mean, just depending on your situation, right? uh Fear of people thinking you're stupid or less or not good enough or whatever. um I've been an artist for most of my life, if not all my life, and I have terrible perfection paralysis. I hate watching myself, I hate listening to myself. um but I really enjoy this, right? I really enjoy talking to people, and I really enjoy getting perspective, and I really enjoy learning and being better because you guys were willing to put that perspective, and because the people at our gym or the people in my life. um and I missed out on a lot of those opportunities as a younger man because I was afraid of somebody labeling me with something, or somebody putting a judgment on me, or even in such crazy situations, like just somebody thinking something about me that I didn't want them to think. You have zero control over that. Right? You can't, whether you open your mouth and say a word or not, you have zero control over it. And it's crazy that jujitsu was the platform that brought me over that fear of most things in my life.
It's
But it
I don't
was.
think that I don't think like I think that is an actually more common experience for people who get into jujitsu than most of us realize, because it was identical for me. And you and I had never spoken to each other until we wound up being in the same class one day, right? And it's like we had the exact same experience. I didn't want people to think a certain way of me if I said the wrong thing. I hated failure, and the thing that jujitsu taught me more than anything was that, like, you're going to fail a lot no matter what, and there's nothing you can do about it. Right? Like Jordan's favorite quote is that, like, jujitsu is just a steady downward decline until you're a black belt. And
And then you
and it's
start
it's
over.
like and then you start over. But like this notion of a like I'll go into every class and I'm like, oh man, I just got promoted. I just got my blue belt and I'm gonna go find a white belt and I'm gonna win a round. And then I get tapped 3 times by a 4-stripe white belt. And it's like it's that constant reminder of your own fallibility and that dose of humility. And then coming out the other side and saying, I just lost 4 times. That's okay. Like, it doesn't define, I know I'm still training. I can go test again tomorrow if I want to go back to class, right? Like, there's so many different things that I can do to address the outcome of to address a negative outcome from this test, that I only learned those life skills through jujitsu. Not jujitsu skills, those are life skills.
So, what would you guys then say to someone who was hesitant or not making moves, or stuck because they were afraid of finding out that they were actually human after all?
When you find out the perfect answer, can you let me know? Because there's still pieces of
No,
my
no,
game.
and I'm going to
You know what I mean?
You're supposed to tell me the answer.
Right, right, right.
Uh, yeah. So, man, these conversations are so great. Um, okay. So, to keep it broad and for the sake of the audience, the value of testing ourselves then comes from our desire to be as prepared as we can for the most likely eventuality that we can foresee, right? And then hopefully you find something that's a skill that covers a wide enough area, right, that you're also prepared
Right.
for other,
Yes.
as much as you can be, other little things. um
Well, it's also, I think, too, Randy. What's interesting, like, and I kind of think about this more and more. Like, the more people don't do, I think it has to be physical, though. I think physicality needs to be part of testing, because so much of life can be lived on, like, video games. Like, oh, I tested myself on this video game today. It's like, but there may be
real
like a
thing,
physical
dude.
or a mental release or a mental, like, ability to achieve. But until you tie that with something physical, your body actually doing something, at least for myself, I have a hard time calling it like an achievement or calling it like a test that you've overcome if you've not paired it with some sort of physical aspect too.
I
Because so
would
much of
push
life is
back. I think we might find like the first slight disagreement in the podcast.
Yeah.
I would push back on that,
Yeah.
because I think there are so many people in the world who don't have the ability to make a task physical or a test physical,
Okay.
whether it be through disability or through circumstance or through some sort of preventative thing. Now, for us, we found what drives us has to be physical. I think that there's also a ton of merit to saying that, like, there's got to be something rewarding in the process of trying to train for your test. And video games, for the most part, are a form of entertainment. Now, there are certainly people that develop a career and they're quite lucrative, right? Fine. But I think within the domain of this conversation, the idea is find a thing that pushes your limits
Exactly.
and have that thing be rewarding inherently.
Yeah.
Our contention may be that video games as a hobby are not going to do that, right? And that's fine,
Possibly.
right?
Yeah.
There
think
might
too-
be an argument in there.
I agree with you, Chris. Like, I think there has to be there has to be an achievement aspect to it. Like,
Right.
and I completely
Yes.
agree. Like, I think you mentioned a story last time we talked about somebody who was like, it talks about the book "Start with the Why" by Simon Sinek. Where
Yeah, great book.
I love that book. He talks about the kid who was handicapped, who was on the cross country team, and he would always come in last place, but then everybody who would finish before him would come and circle back to him and run to the finish line with him. And it's like that achievement was not only a team achievement, but he was him completing a task and not just. And I love that task oriented mentality, achieving something, working towards something. And oftentimes people pair the two together. Like, if he was just like I finished reading this book, where he maybe mentally he could physically do it, but physically it's something he had to physically do to achieve that
Right.
end goal.
It's all about how you push what you perceive to be your own limits
Yes.
in order to achieve something.
Mhm.
And whether or not you achieve it is irrelevant. It's the notion of pushing that
Yes.
gives you the reward.
So I love the word you use there. You said perceive, right? Your perceived notion of your limitations. Because ultimately, what we're talking about here is overcoming mindset.
Mhm.
Whether you're doing something physical or whether you're doing something that requires mental fortitude, it's all about changing your mindset from one thing to another, right? If I go do something physical and I couldn't do it before and now I prove to myself that I can, my mind now has learned that I can do that thing, right? So your mindset shifts. I think you guys probably are both right. I think again what it comes down to for Chris, and probably you illustrated that point perfectly, Jordan, was that our mindset about the things that we feel like we need to test ourselves on is what shapes the reality. And it doesn't really matter what somebody else thinks or even their thoughts or opinions on your part of the process or whether you succeed
Totally
or
right.
fail, right? It absolutely has to do with what you decide to do with the results of your test. Uh, One of the great quotes, it's not it's not open guards, but you know, a common phrase that you hear us say a lot is you win or you learn, and actually I think winning is learning just as much as losing is learning, right? So you learn or you learn. If
Yeah.
I think this is the crux of the conversation because if we are testing ourselves, if everybody out there, and again, feel free to put down in the comments, if you are testing yourself, are you honoring the results and are you choosing to allow the results to help you learn? Are you learning something? Are you better
Yeah.
because you know,
I got
put,
one.
are you better because of it?
All right. So, question then for you: what is an event or a test that you can look back on and see see a change that's come out because of it? Because I have a very specific event in my life that I can look at as a test.
I have one too.
Yeah. So you mean whether I passed or failed it?
achieving it, what did it change in you? Or what was the test and what did it change?
Wow, dude, way to flip the table on me. I wasn't that prepared.
Well, here, let me go while you
Go
search your
ahead. Yeah, yeah,
memory,
yeah. Let me think about this.
because I have a specific one, and this was before, Jordan, you had moved out to Georgia. And for those of you in the audience who haven't met Jordan before, he's known for coming up with very difficult physical tests. Um, so there was one that he decided to do where he took on the CrossFit workout Murph, which is what is it? 200 squats, 100 push-ups, 50 pull-ups, and then a mile run, and then you do it all again. Or there's like some combination of a ridiculous amount
Yeah, it's like a
of push-up,
mile run, 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 air squats, a mile run.
and then a
Yeah,
mile run.
yeah.
Oh,
Weighted.
Jordan was like, let's do that. And then when we're done, let's do a jujitsu version of what that is an hour later. And we'll go 8 rounds that are 8 minutes long with no rest in between each of these rounds. So you get roughly another 50 minutes of high heart rate, consistent output. And for anybody who has done Murph, they will know the pain associated with pushing. And then to go turn around and drive straight from the CrossFit gym, shower, and then go onto the mats and do that test. I remember finishing the first mile of Murph going, I'm done. I quit. I feel terrible today. I didn't fuel right. I still have to do 100, 200, 300 body weight movements, and then I got to go run them. I'm never going to finish this. And I have a distinct memory of rounding the corner on my last mile. And like the last maybe 100 meters, there was about 4 or 5 people from the gym, from the jujitsu gym, and all kind of ran with me to finish the line. And I was like, that's what it is. That was the test. The test was whether or not I could make it back to the people who believed in me enough that they wanted to actually do this with me together. And I remember feeling horrible. I had like a gel and some caffeine and some electrolytes in the drive home, thinking like, I'm no longer scared to do the jujitsu test, knowing there's going to be 50, 60 people on the mat, which is 2 or 3 times the size of a normal class. So I have no control over whether or not Jimmy is a 250-pound black belt, scariest, fighter in the gym, would like to go for 8 minutes and just maul me, or whether I'm going to get to have rest rounds with folks that I can just kind of play defense. I did no idea, and I didn't care, because like just getting like that wind of support in the last 100 meters of the last mile of Murph was like, oh no, my friends aren't going to let me quit. They won't let me quit. And that was the test for me. It was like, can I just make it back to the people that I know have got my back? And that changed everything.
I think that probably you could tell by the line of questioning, and as hard as I was pushing in the beginning, but I was sort of a late bloomer in life when it comes to not personal honesty and not confidence, um, but a reality of like who I am as a person and what I'm capable of, and and those kind of things. It wasn't. I learned as a child to project humility because achieving was a punishable offense oftentimes when I was a kid. Um, just growing up with people who are jealous of you, as a kid to an adult relationship, it put me in this place where I was like, I'm just gonna always be humble. I'm never gonna talk about myself. And because of that, I actually developed a mindset that just kind of went autopilot along with that. Right. Um, about 2 months ago, I was in a great job, that I was working from home. I was doing video production, which I love. Um, I was kind of a rock star at the company. I'd been there for 7 years, just, crazy. And I loved all the people I worked with, but I'm just an outdoor person, I need to get my hands dirty. I need to be physical. I need these things to fuel myself. And sitting and staring at a screen, besides screwing up my eyes for the last 7 years, caused this incredible anxiety and stress in my life that I got to the point where I'm like, I can't go down this road, right? It's not the only factor left that could be causing this is my job.
Hmm.
And so I quit and I went and took a job as a maintenance technician at a senior community, making a lot less than I was making before, working as an assistant, painting and picking up trash and all these things, like some janitorial, some construction, but not at all what I was used to before, uh, recording podcasts for these billionaire speakers that would come in that are world renowned and just helping them, developing a first name basis with these people. This is a complete departure, right? And I wasn't sure that I even could do it. I'm not young anymore. Like, I'm going into a more physical job and it's, whatever. Um, but within the first 2 weeks of doing that job, I got offered a promotion. And a week and a half later, I got moved to a director role in a completely different community, running the entire building, running the housekeeping teams, running the maintenance teams. Um, and I absolutely love going to work. I've been smiling every day. I've put out the
Awesome.
podcast that I have been wanting to put out for a long, long time. Why couldn't a person who is working in video production put out their own podcast? I had all the tools for free. I had everything, right? When you're I found out a long time ago that until my brain is ready, I can force whatever I want and it's not going to work. Every door is going to slam in my face.
Hmm.
I could have tried to do jujitsu at 18. I could have tried it at 20. I could have tried it at 30. I could have tried it at 35. I wasn't ready for it to change my
Mhm.
life until I was, and then it did. Since the day that I quit that other job, I've slept through the night. I wake up happy to go to work. I don't care if work calls me on my day off. It doesn't really matter. I am enjoying what I'm doing. I'm enriching other people's lives and I'm making my life better. It was a huge test and it was a huge risk. Um, but it paid off in a way that I could not possibly have imagined. And my life is better right now because of it. And that was only a month ago. So, yeah, sorry it took me a little while to think of a story, but uh,
It's a
like it
good
should have
one.
been so obvious. It's like you're right in the rear view. But that was mine. What do you got for us, Jordan?
I think for me, so growing up playing sports and kind of getting into cycling, and cycling for me is kind of when I kind of came into my own of realizing that like doing, if I do enough hard work, I can usually get the results that I want. Right? It's like that Musashi quote: "When you see the way broadly, you will know it in all things, or you know the way broadly, you will see it in all things." And it's like the way for me is just grinding. And I remember for me the big event was like the first time I heard about the Goggins Challenge. So if you don't know, the David Goggins Challenge is a 4 mile run every 4 hours for 48 hours. So you start at 4 p.m. or 8 p.m. on a Friday, and you go every 4 hours until 4 p.m. on Sunday. And I'm not a runner. I'm 6'3", 220, like or 217 now actually. But I'm not built like a runner. I'm not designed for it. I have knees that have Osgood slaughters from growing a lot as a kid. And so I remember hearing about that the first time as being like, that sounds terrible, and you can pass me on that. And the more I heard about it and kind of got the bug to do it, I remember it was like in late March, and I started in February. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna run every day between now and then to get myself ready for it. And it was like a mile here or there, and then kind of build up and build up. And I remember like the days leading up to it, it's like feeling like the sense of dread because it's like I don't want to wake. I love my sleep, and I need sleep. I don't do good without sleep. So, and Randy can attest to that. We were across the country, and I needed sleep, and he didn't. But it was this thing, which is like, all right. And then when the first time came around, I went and ran my 4 miles, and it was just like, and it wasn't that bad. And then the 8 p.m. and then midnight and then 4 a.m. and then 8, and it's just that as the time started to tick by, it was guys got worse and worse, and you're trying to like recover, you're trying to take care of your feet and trying to do all these things. Like I remember running like the 8 a.m. one on Sunday and realizing I had 3 left, but just being so emotionally distraught, like just broken down by it. I remember running past people and just like tears running down my face, and I had no idea why. And And I was like, I'm like just running and like wiping my eyes. It's like,
What am I doing?
and I couldn't control it. I'm like, I have 3 of these left. I have 12 more miles to run. And I remember like doing the last one, and I started because I was writing down all my times, and like the last 3, my times are speeding up. Like seeing that kind of finish line coming, and like my kids did the last couple with me, and they rode their bikes and kind of like cheered me on, and it was this weird sensation. Like when I finished it, it's like looking back, when this is the hardest thing I've ever done. Like because it isn't just a one-time thing; it's every 4 hours, and it just starts to wear on you. When you start going, you're like the midnight run or the 4 a.m. run on the second day is just you don't want to do it at all. Like you wake up, your alarm goes off, you have like 5 minutes, put your clothes on to go run, and you're like, I don't want to do this right now. And every part of your body is just screaming at you, going, "This is stupid. Let's not do this right now." And it's like you learn to turn that little voice to shut up, and we're doing this, and exactly. We all have that voice, right? It's just that little voice that tells you not to do things. And sometimes it's smart, and sometimes it's not smart to listen to it. But I feel like I've gotten to a point now where that voice doesn't even talk to me anymore.
It's given up. Dude, I have
it killed itself.
I have a list of Jordan challenges. I'm not joking. I keep it on the side of my desk. So I feel like I'm like your test dummy sometimes, where it's like, hey, I want to do I want to do a mile of lunges. You want to do this with me? And I go, of course I don't, but I will. Like, oh, we're gonna do. I think it's 113 in Sacramento. We should do a really hard workout.
Yeah,
and then make it an annual thing.
Yeah, what do we call it?
I think it was a not safe for work name.
Yeah. So at my last corporate event that I did with the company I was at previously, they brought in a special speaker, and his name is Jesse Itzler. And if you guys haven't checked out Jesse Itzler, if you don't know who he is, go check him out. He's got a really cool story. It'll rip your heart out, but at the same time, it's also very motivational and some really good stuff. He's an endurance runner and someone who tests himself in these 100-mile runs and polar bear swims and stuff like that. But it kind of reminds me a little bit of Jordan. He has that sicko switch flipped on. He likes to suffer and and go through all those things. But yeah, check him out if you don't know him. But hey, listen, we are right up at the end of the hour, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this conversation up. Oh, fellas, amazing, amazing stuff. I get so much out of talking to you guys. I love you both, my brothers. I appreciate you. For everybody out there that's listening, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Please drop comments, like, and subscribe. Share this out to people. Help us grow this community and this movement. Let us know what you think and let us know how we can improve the show. We'd love to continue to make this thing better and just have more fun and more enlightening conversations. We've got some really cool one-on-one interviews that I've gotten a chance to do coming up. We have, I'll give you a little sneak preview. My buddy Tyler Bray, one of our coaches at the gym, I got a chance to sit down and do an interview with him. He's a bodybuilder. He's a jiu-jitsu black belt. And oh yeah, he was born with spina bifida and he can't use his legs from below the waist. Crazy, crazy story. Talk about testing yourself and overcoming. But until then, make sure you download the Rumble app and check that out. Come back every Friday at noon Pacific. We're going to be dropping new content, whether it's a panel, whether it's a one-on-one interview, all kinds of fun stuff that we have coming up as we go into the summer. But again, we just want to express gratitude. Thank you for being here. Thank you for helping us to have these conversations and listening to them. Thank you for contributing. And thanks for being in our life. We appreciate you and we love you. Jordan, Chris, thanks, fellas. See you next week.
See you guys.
Yeah.
Stop.